Messy Honky Tonk Blues. Hey everybody, welcome to Strumming with Christopher. I'm Christopher Gallegos with Monterey County Free Libraries, Gonzales Branch. So in the last episode I talked about country rhythm strumming, that nice leisurely slow country strum. And rhythm is always the most important. I mean, if you can't play rhythm guitar, there's no point in jumping into trying to do solos immediately. Rhythm guitar is where it's at. And that's where 80-90% of songs will, start out with a rhythm and with a chord progression. But it's also fun to talk about melody too. So, in a similar way to the blues series, the two videos about the blues where I talked about boogie woogie. The last video I did about the blues, I talked about boogie woogie guitar, which was kind of that piano style that also made it to guitar. And with country, like any other music style, you can't just reduce it to it's these two or three things. But to talk to you about some examples, I'm using tools that we already have. So today I want to talk about a type of melodic guitar that you see in country music, certain types of country music, called Chickin Pickin. So drop the G off the end. So Chickin Pickin. And Chickin Pickin became really popular in the 1950s. In the early 60s with honky tonk music, which is kind of that faster, bouncier country, that kind of, as opposed to a kind of a more leisurely honky tonk just sped it up. And with honky tonk, you had some guitarists that started to take elements of the blues again. It all seems to sprout from the blues, but they added this kind of technique to their solos and their melodies, where it sounded almost like a chicken squawking, like a that little kind of when you see the hens picking at the grain and everything else, and you hear the little clucking. They were trying to get that kind of clucking sound with a guitar. So it's a type of soloing melody, but it's also very percussive. It kind of has almost like a drum-like kind of thing to it. And Chickin Pickin can be as simple or as technical as you'd like it to be, but in going with the whole idea of taking things we've already learned and showing you how they fit into styles of music, I want to use the pentatonic scale example that we went over not too long ago. So if you recall, let's get right into it. So the pentatonic scale, if you recall, I used an A minor pentatonic scale, okay, just because A is always fret 5 up here on the low E. It's kind of in the middle of the fretboard, easy to see. And if you recall, the pentatonic scale was kind of like a box shape, right? So it was your index finger on the 5th fret, then your pinky goes to fret 8 on the low E. Okay. And then you have this shape that persists for 3 strings. So you go to the low A, and then it's 5, 7, and it stays that way for a few strings. So 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, and then back to that bigger shape on the bottom on the B. 5, 8, 5, 8, and then back up. 8, 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5. So you have that box shape, and just like a bar chord, you can move it down the fretboard. So you minor pentatonic is usually the easier, one of the easier scales when you're starting out. There's also a major pentatonic, and there's other types of scales, but it goes with a lot of different types of music. You hear it in a lot of rock solos, you hear it in the blues, and you hear it in country. So Chickin Pickin is not as hard as it looks, but we're going to start real simple. So here's what I want you to do. This A minor pentatonic shape we did, how about you take it down to the middle of the shape? So in this case, that might be D string, fret 5 and 7. So listen to this when I just pick it with a normal alternate picking, up, down, that we've also learned. Sounds pretty straightforward. Or if I go down to the G string, do the same thing. Now tell me if you hear anything different. I'm going to play that, and then I'm going to show you some Chickin Pickin. got that little squawk in there, that little. So how do you do that? So since we have that simple little example, just think D string, index finger fret 5, ring finger 7, and then go down to that. So it's a little box there. 5 7 5 7 5 7 5 7. Basically 4 notes, right? So once you have that, let's shift our thinking from alternate picking up down up down up down up down up down up down. Let's shift from that to a couple things. One, you want to think of your first technique here in chicken picking is you're going to pick upwards, but you're going to have your pick really, really slanted upward, almost like an extension of your fingernail. If your fingernail grew up, you know, and you want to pick upward. Okay, you want to pick upward in a way where the string almost kind of snaps, not literally snaps in your face, but just kind of. Kind of like a pop, 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 pop. So it's kind of a semi-aggressive upward pick, and that's the first part. Okay, so just think of your pick being kind of pointed upwards and kind of go up, 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 almost like a curve up. So. Upward pick. So. Alternate picking, chicken picking. Okay, that's step one. Step two is a little thing you do where instead of keeping your finger down after you pick the note, you pick it up really quick after you fret it. Okay, what would that look like? Well, typically, normal playing would be like this. Finger stays pressed down. This one, you pick the finger up right after you pick it, so it'd be like this. You see that little squawk? Instead of 2 notes, 4 notes. You see my fingers coming off at the end after I pick it real quick, so. You basically lift your finger up just a little bit where you get that chunky little mute. Okay, so if you mix that technique with this upward stroke, you get this chicken picking sound, so check it out. So again, normal. Chicken picking slowed down. So it's, again, one of those simple but not easy things. And if you want to add a third element to it, if you recall the power chords episode a long time ago, I talked about this palm muting. Where you have your palm of your hand down here by the bridge of the guitar, kind of not muting the notes totally, but just kind of. See? So if you do 3 things, you do that upward curved pick. You do the finger quickly off, and you do a muting. You get a real chicken picking thing, so something like this. Real fast it'd sound like. Would just be so it's a subtle difference, but if you hear enough honky-tonk music, you can kind of hear that that little squawky sound in there. So it's just an approach for you to take to understand how country music guitar solos sound. It's a very classic country kind of sound, but yeah, give that a try. That kind of curved upstroke, upstrokes only, and finger kind of lifting right after you play the note. And then if you want to add some palm muting, you can. It's optional. So try out some chicken picking and see how it feels.